Good evening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying the day so far. Yes? All right, maybe not so much. Are you enjoying yourself? Awesome. When we do that, it actually raises our own energy, and that contributes to the energy of the entire room. That's why it's so important to have that resounding yes. Thank you for pitching in. So, we're kicking off our second session. It's a really interesting panel discussion on how hospitality is really a gateway to global career opportunities. And joining us today are two fantastic people from the industry. We're joined by Aisha Barse. She's the head of human resources at ITC Maratha. And Shashank Shekhar Sharma. He's the senior vice president at Zepto. Before we begin, let me give you a small introduction for both our panelists. Well, Aisha has got close to 2 decades of experience in the industry. She has worked with multiple brands, Royal Orchid Hotels, Citrus Hotels, and with Marriott International as well. And what she calls home today is ITC Maratha. She's really passionate about not just managing the HR operations and keeping the staff on their feet, but really pushing them to deliver fantastic guest experiences by investing a lot in training and development. In the case of Shashank, he's an IHM Busa grad, also did a course at OCLD, and of course then joined Oberoi Hotels. He worked his way up to become F&B manager, and that's when he moved on to slightly different kind of roles. He joined Chai Point, progressed through the organization, and was at Chai Point as the National India head. That's when he was offered a really interesting profile at Zepto. Zepto is, how many of you use Zepto here? Quick show of hands. All right. A lot of
He's
Zeptos in
happy.
the house.
He's happy now.
Yeah, so Udita, my colleague, she was saying, I want to tell Shashank that I'm a loyal Zepto user. So at Zepto, of course, he's the senior vice president, and he's been instrumental in setting up Zepto Cafe. Okay, so let's get straight into the session, and let me start by saying thank you for making time and being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, I wanted to start by asking you, how has your education shaped you personally and professionally?
Well, I would say it's significantly contributed to, shaping me as a person, personally as well as professionally. I think it would start by instilling discipline, which is very, very important in our day-to-day life. Whether we have a holiday, we are at home, or we are in our, routine at work. So I think it all starts with our education, the core values that are instilled in us, the very foundation of that institute, and the way they chisel us to ensure that we become not only successful individuals but future leaders. So I think it all starts there. When you have a right foundation, that's when you're going to really soar to heights.
I completely second the thought that discipline is the foundation for everything. And it'll sound like a very heavy word, but honestly, now in the hindsight, right? Everybody's very smart in the hindsight. When we all look back and reflect and we say, thank God we won that ovarian lottery to be born to those parents who gave us that education. And because of that education, we've been able to reach wherever little in life we have been able to. So even for me, getting into IHM Pusa was like a dream come true. And there's a little funny story. My father sent somebody from the office, and हमारे time पे ना वो list होती थी. तो list में नाम लिखे जाते थे. तो the peon said, नहीं sir, इधर भी नहीं हुआ इसका. So my dad kind of called mom and said, listen, this dude is not here too. And about a week later, and the website crashed. So about a week later, one of my friends and I was watering the plants in the morning, and he said, "यार तेरा तो हो गया." मैं कहा, "यार क्यों मजाक कर रहा है? नहीं हुआ मेरा." He said, "नहीं नहीं check कर." So I had thrown the admit card somewhere, मैं ढूंढा निकाला. I saw, and damn, I was like rank 293. I said, "Very good, well done." And then of course that's how I got into that college. Of course I had worked very hard. So that also tells you not to give up hope, right? I did. And in the interim, and we were having a very interesting conversation outside looking at those universities, we didn't have these kind of events. So I was just reminiscing in my mind that had that opportunity been there, to see so many colleges and get into that, that part would have been even more nicer. So those 6 7 days of my stomach churning would have been away. But yeah, and that's what laid the foundation specifically with our profs when they were teaching us the science behind food. So today what I'm doing is delivering food in 10 minutes. And a lot of people would walk up and say, how the hell on earth are you doing this? Right? And the answer is science. Because we've gone so deep into the science, the foundation for which was laid right in that first class of our culinary session in the college. So yeah.
It's so interesting. And you also raised a very valid point. Today, if anyone is successful, it's of course attributed to their own effort, but they also have a really strong ecosystem of support. So I think all of us, we should always be grateful for having a family and a network of friends that support us, that encourage us, and help us in our success. All right. I wanted to ask you, hospitality education is so unique because you learn, so much about hospitality operations, you learn business skills, but interestingly, you learn to create and curate fantastic guest experiences. That I feel would, make hospitality graduates employable in other industries. What's your view on that?
I absolutely agree with you, Amit. I mean, what is the whole idea of us going to a hotel? Because we want that wow experience, right? And let's say a five-star hotel, typically. So we go there typically for an occasion. Could be a birthday, anniversary, you're celebrating something. So I'll just take a minute and tell you this is something that I always say. We are all born attention seekers. Yes? When a baby cries, why does this baby cry? It's not necessary that baby is hungry or you need to change the diaper or anything else. The baby knows that if I cry, I'm going to get some form of attention. And we are like this throughout our lives. You trust me, as much as you deny it, we all would feel, deprived if people don't give us attention. We spend hours getting ready, not only the girls, even the boys, when you groom yourself. If nobody looks at you, you'll wonder, hey, am I dressed okay? So, the same way, coming back to a personalized experience in a hotel, I think it just creates this wow factor, not only for you, but for the people who are around you. And that will have a recall value, in your head. When you say, hey, I went to JW Marriott and that experience was amazing. And I take pride stating that, even though I'm in HR, but when I know there's a repeat guest coming or somebody that I know, we ensure an ITC does a lot of personalization. When the guest is coming back, we would literally have amenities with their photographs placed, maybe their family pictures, things that they like. So that's what makes you stand apart from others because you are empowered to do these things. I don't think there's any other industry. I don't think there's any other industry besides hotels or restaurants where you can personalize the experience so much. Of course, airlines would be able to, and hospitality as such. I don't think there's any other industry where you can curate these amazing personalized experiences.
So many people benchmark hospitality. I mean, I remember talking to a senior HR personnel from Infosys, and they said that they really studied the induction process of Taj hotels, for example, or how Taj greets its guest, and that's how they try and greet their new employees. They design the entire process around that. So it's really interesting that hospitality is actually inspiring other industries to learn how you should manage guest, treat guest. Shashank, please pitch in with your view on this topic.
No, likewise. So I can. So last month we were at Peshawari at your hotel, and there's just anecdotal that The warmth which me and a gang of friends, and we wanted to have food, we didn't have reservation, it was getting late in the night, they were about to close the buffet, and we were hungry as crazy. And they said, sir, no problems, aap aao, beto. They organized the table, I think, and we were all gang of guys, so we were slightly loud. And they just kind of made sure that we were cocooned in this warmth. And that, for me, has become now a reference point where every time I think of ITC, thanks to that one particular property and that one particular set of 3 or 4 folks who were there in that night, who fed us, they fed us with a smile, and they fed us in a way that it nourished us. And now we'll always carry that moment in our life. So really echo what you just said.
Thank you. And now you know when you have to come to ITC, you just call me. We'll make sure you have the table.
Wow. This is amazing. So it's really interesting, think of it this way. There are so many different service industries. And, when brands and products are trying to offer a product or a service, they're so similar. And what really differentiates them is the service they provide, the experience they design around the product. People don't just buy a bag from Gucci, it's the Gucci experience. That's what draws them back to the store. The smell of the store, the way they're greeted by the staff. Where do you think they're learning all of this from? They're actually incubating and they're absorbing people from hospitality. So it's interesting that luxury retail, banking, I'm just naming two industries that on the top of my mind, are examples of other industries that are recruiting hotel management students. Because that's what you learn, how to make your guest feel like extra, extra special. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, no, just to pitch in. So the hospitality part of any business is very intangible. So you become very, very, very important for that organization or that business because you can put a value to it, right? I can put value to this. But when somebody gives it to me with a lot of affection in a glass and says, why don't you have a glass of water, Shashank? Suddenly the value has gone phenomenal, right? So that's what hospitality does. It adds that unmeasurable, intangible value which gets associated, and that basically inflates the bottom line for any organization. So, empathy, hospitality is an intangible part of any business, and it's good to be in this line.
Awesome. Really nice views coming on this point. Okay. I wanted to ask you on, DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And do you think hospitality brands are getting more DEI focused nowadays?
Very much, Amit. And it's amazing. I'd go back to when I started my career, it was completely male dominated. I used to be the only lady HOD sitting in the morning meeting with all the men, the general manager, and the other people. Of course, I never really faced any issues. Everyone treated us very nicely. But it was nice to know and understand how people, I'm talking about families who are not very open to their daughters working with hotels. But thankfully, as times have passed, we have amazing women leaders. And, I thank their families and friends for supporting them. And then we also got to know about, people from different communities. ITC does support a lot of recruitment from people with disabilities, people from the LGBTQI community. And in fact, we have a lot of emphasis on it. In fact, last year is when I started hiring people from the LGBTQI community. It's not that people don't want to hire them. You don't understand how to go about the process. So one is you need to have sensitization sessions with people because by default, when you see someone who's a little different, you look at that person twice. You may not be giggling at the person, but you'll smile looking at the way the person is dressed. Okay, now you need to understand very sensitive things like which are the washrooms they will use. So we also have gender neutral washrooms. They cannot use the regular lockers, which our ladies and gentlemen use. So we have specialized lockers for them. So I think every hospitality industry and every other industry can welcome them, include them, but you need to ensure that you have these facilities available for them and make them feel welcome. And I'm telling you, I have one of them in my team, and he is fantastic. He looks after my employee relations. And literally, they love talking, and people are also very comfortable now. And I'm going and talking to girls, oh, look at your nail polish, it's so pretty. So I think after a few sessions and after a few interactions, we also have to accept and embrace them. A few people may find it a little weird, but trust me, after you interact with them a few times, you will embrace them. And they are amazing people and they are superb at their work. So, hospitality is promoting this. And I hope other industries also embrace these people because they need honorable jobs. So, we are continuing. In fact, this year I have a target to hire 10 of them. Currently, I have five from the last year. This year, I need to hire 10. So I'm scouting. If you come across any, please refer them to us. Thank you.
So interesting to hear the different processes that you'll have put into place. You'll have really thought through it really well. And even when you look at, all the large brands, even guys like Dell, IBM, Apple, all of them have these DEI focused targets in terms of recruitment because, talent does not come in any shape or form. Anyone, you can get talent anywhere. And the more diverse your workforce, the more creative you become and more nimble and agile you become as an organization. So it's really interesting. Shashank, anything that you'd like to add to this?
No, a couple of things actually. So what we did is very interesting at Zepto, and there was an ad film that just came out last week as well. We have people who are hard of hearing, or and we call we they're especially abled, cannot speak. And the interesting part is, and this is where it gets interesting for all the folks who are blessed or gifted with that ability, because the other folks have other senses which are much more heightened, right? So, two things, two giveaways. If I was you, your age, I would say, oh, great, these three folks are talking about something, and I'll relate to it because when you get into the workforce, as you just said, there are going to be many more folks working with you with those strengths or areas where they're kind of slightly challenged. So we need to make sure that we recognize that, we learn from that person what are his strengths and how do you imbibe that strength in you. So that is one thing for all young leaders to do. And at our end, what we did was, and what's changing very rapidly, is technology. So when you come and order on the app with Zepto, you are see the app. Nobody is talking to you or telling you आपको क्या लेना है नहीं लेना है. And the moment your order hits for a Maggie or a biryani or a coffee, it's actually that specially able person who's looking on a digital screen and just making it. And they're damn good at it. And of course, the retention levels are very high, punctuality levels are very high. But the interesting part for us guys is that they don't have distractions, right? So we need to learn from that how sharp focus this person has, and can I bring that focus in my life as well and become even more successful. So that's what this particular thing helps, right? To uplift your A game in whichever peer set you're working.
Such an interesting point, Shashank. You're actually talking about as a leader, how can I learn from the strong points of someone? And that's so interesting to hear. In all organizations, you have mentorship programs, and it's really interesting. Today, young folks like you are so adept at technology, so good with working with AI, that organizations have this concept called reverse mentoring, where someone young in the organization will sit with a VP or a CEO and show them, hey, these are some social media tricks you don't know. Or this is how I'm using ChatGPT. Why don't you try it as well? So this reverse mentoring program also is so interesting. It's all along the same lines, learning from people who work as part of your team. All right. I wanted to ask you, Aisha, and of course you as well, Shashank. There are a lot of students in the audience here who may, want to seek a job in the near future. So, what can they do to succeed in their first interview?
Well, that reminds me about the first time I went for an interview. and I'd like to tell you about it. So I went in to get a job with a BPO way back in the year 2000. And I was dressed in this casual party pants and one crop top and open hair, carrying one Coke in my hand. And of course, I didn't end up taking that BPO job, but I ended up working with that consultancy that I'd gone to. And I remember, I mean, till today, my boss, once in 2, 3 months, he gives this example of there's this girl called Aisha who's to head our recruitment here, and he'll ensure and emphasize on what I was wearing and how I came for the interview. So, one is you need to ensure that you're really well dressed because that's what creates the first impression, even before you speak. The way you're dressed, how you walk in, wear subtle colors, nothing loud. You know, for boys, you should typically wear a light colored shirt with a contrasting tie. Ensure your clothes are well ironed. That's your first impression. Your shoes are polished, your hair is groomed well. Trust me, in my hotel, if someone comes for an interview, doesn't have a proper haircut, has not shaved, he's not groomed well, my team sends him back because they know I will reject him based on that. Because if you're not presenting yourself, it's not happening. Two, please ensure your resume is well presented. It's a reflection of yourself. How you carry your resume. There are people who may roll their resume, may just be carrying a printout like that, you know. Please ensure it's, first made well, has precise information. This is something I'd like to tell you. I ask a lot of people when you write my objective, my aim, my goal. 90% of people don't know what's written on their resume because it's not made by them. It's all right if you don't know how to make your resume and you're seeking help and you have AI to help you. But please ensure that you are thorough with what's on your resume, right? And everyone knows what's on your resume. What's important is if I ask you, can you tell me something about yourself that's not on your resume? You're not prepared for that. Everyone prepares and they mug up what's on the resume. So at least that's my style of interviewing. The other important thing is the company that you're going to for an interview, company, hotel, whatever. Please ensure you visit their website and at least have basic information about where I'm going. If it's a hotel, what are the number of rooms, what are the number of F&B outlets, etc., etc. It feels really bad for an interviewer when I ask you, why do you want to work at IDC Maratha? And they come up with some random question. You want to work in the rooms, okay? How many rooms do you have at IDC Maratha? I'm not sure, 200, 250. So it's not happening. So confidence, very important, of course. And confidence will come automatically when you're well groomed, you've carried your resume, you're carrying your confidence with you, and you're prepared for the interview. Of course, the job role is not important. We're not going to grill you when you're a fresher. We just want to know if you have the right attitude, you have the skill set, and you're a go getter. And you're willing to go beyond the regular call of duty because now in hotels, it's all about anticipating guest needs, right? So these are my basic tips for a fresher. And if you follow them, I can assure you, you're going to be successful at cracking that first interview.
Thank you so much for that, Aisha. I think you gave some fantastic tips. Shashank, maybe you can extend that. Let me ask you a slightly different perspective. So let's say, uh, 7 people from IHM Pusa joined a specific property. And someone's thinking to himself, I've got 7 of my batchmates with me. What can I do to really stand out? How do I perform once I've got the job? What can you say to that?
Well, so the easiest way is to work really hard. And believe me, in the longer run, so imagine I'm imagining a scenario. 7 of us are there lined up, right? And we're in food and beverage, and we are posted to 3 or 4 different restaurants. You just have to do one single thing. Whatever the instructions are given, because you're new, somebody will be instructing you, is to do it to the best of your ability. And to do it consistently day in and day out. Right? A lot of times we start thinking about future. क्या होगा मेरे साथ तो कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा, I'm not growing, oh they're not letting me go to the table, I'm just in the back area, I'm just clearing all of this. That's fine, because believe me, somebody is noticing. There are people who are paid to just observe, right? And that's what a manager is all about. So and just want to tie it back to what you just said, that even on your resume, the way you even staple the staple pin, right? How straight is it? How tera it is? That is also observed by the interviewers at a lot of levels. And that's how in the first 15 seconds, the first impression might not be the last impression, but it's a lasting impression. So most of the interviewers in the first 15 to 30 seconds will decide whether they're really keen or no. And that's how you make a difference. Very simple. Go in, work really hard, day in and day out, consistently.
Thanks for that, Shashank. If I can just add to what our two panelists have said, just be genuine. Don't try to portray an image. Because what happens is, if we are something, but we portray something else, the people who are sitting behind the interviewing table, they have so much life experience, work experience, that they see through it. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is to be your most authentic self. Don't portray something because you think it should be done. Just be true to yourself. All right, we're going to move to a really interesting quick fire round, okay? And I'm going to quickly pose a set of questions. To each question, I'd like both of you to give me a small monosyllable or a brief response, okay?
Is it like the coffee with Karan kind of a thing?
But a little less controversial.
Coffee with Amit. Do we get a hamper?
No, I'm glad they're not on the coffee couch to be put on this.
Well, coffee with Karan can be quite racy. This is an education event, but this is a quick fire round all the same. Okay, here goes. What trait, one single trait, do you value most in freshers?
Confidence.
Okay,
Honesty.
fantastic. Okay. What's the biggest mistake one can make in an interview?
Lying.
Not being honest.
So the same thing said two different ways. All right, okay. What is one common misconception that people have about the hospitality industry?
Long working hours.
Okay.
That it doesn't pay well.
Fantastic. Both those myths shattered. All right. What is the single biggest differentiator that makes a hospitality brand stand out?
Rewards and recognition.
Okay.
I'd say empathy.
All right. Okay. If you can name one attribute that helps a person succeed as a hospitality professional, what would it be?
Anticipating needs, whether it's guest needs, employee needs. Unless you anticipate it, you can't look after your people or guests.
Loving what you do, day in and out.
Awesome. So I think it's been a really fantastic discussion. And before we move to the Q&A session, let's give our panelists a big round of applause.